Welcome to Elm Elaborates. This is where Ryan and I sit down with you and we talk about what's going on in our world and kind of explain what's going on.
That's
and
right.
How we deal with issues.
Sometimes we have well thought out thoughts and episodes. Today is absolutely an exception.
Yes, because there's a lot going on in our world and a lot to celebrate. And one of those big celebrations right now is one of the projects we have locally here, 717, right across the street.
So, Cameron, what is 717 Market Street?
So 717 Market Street is a co-working space that we actually built. Just a lot of offices. You got single-use offices. You got team share suites.
Yeah, with spaces.
Yeah, and then you have like conference rooms. Small independent businesses can go there and rent a space for them to meet with their clients or whatever it may be. We actually do some of our quarterly meetings in shared office spaces.
Yeah, just like that. And we'll probably move it over there. It's also got a kitchen and gym, a rooftop deck. Yeah. So, yeah, it's just a really great office conversion that we here at Elm Builders did right across the street for one of our fractional CFOs and a great client, Christopher Capone. So, yeah.
And we are celebrating that today. And why is that?
That is because we are waiting for the inspection to come in on our phones. We've got the verbal approval that we will get a written approval by about 3 p.m. Right now it's 12:36, and so we should be getting that before 3 o'clock today, that we are getting CO. It is final. It is done. And the inspection this morning went great. There was very minor things. They want pictures and videos of everything completed. And then we are putting to bed that project.
That is true. So I will tell you this. When any inspections that you have, especially final, rough, whatever it may be, it's always good. You got to build the rapport with the inspector, but always good to just be like, okay, instead of having me to reschedule, putting another inspection on the schedule, because these guys got 200 inspections a day usually. Like, there's so many. So, instead of having to come out, drive 20 minutes, look at this one thing that we talked about a million times, can I just send you a video? Can I send you a picture? Mm-hmm. Some inspectors are cool with that. Some inspectors, want to come back out, whatever it may be. But if you can get away with it, if they will accept that, that's a win.
But they'll only do that if they know and like and trust you. Like if you're a fly-by-night contractor, they're not going to do that.
If they actively see you install, they're like, hey, we need one more bar up. It's like, dude, it's right here on the ground. I'm going to install this. Yeah. Of course, I'm not just going to leave it. I got a customer still. I got to make them happy. Right. So that's all we're waiting on. It was just a couple grab bars. It's like, okay, I'm going to send a video to you. That video has already been sent out. I've texted Kyle in the county. I was like, once that thing comes across your desk, you text me
right away.
You say, hey, we've got the pass. And then I'm going to call the county and be like, hey, give me that CO, please. Yes. And they're going to be like, it takes hours. Please, I want it.
It takes 48 hours for processing. I've gotten that before. Gosh, it's like, come on.
Can you just shoot me a screenshot?
So when you started working at Elm, what did that project look like? I remember you and I did an interview at that project.
Gosh, and it's so crazy to look back at pictures because I remember that interview and I just remember there being a lot of rooms, right? Like I was like, okay, it's hard to really see the vision when there's so many walls up and you're like, okay.
And it was literally dark in there. There was no power and it was moldy and dark.
It was. So it's kind of really cool because that is like a project that I've seen cradle to grave. It has come such a long ways. And when I first got here and, I started looking at 717, I guess I didn't capture the full extent. I've only heard bits and at that point I was like, okay, 717 is across the street. And even then, the concept of it all was still fuzzy. Right?
Yes.
Looked at the plans a little bit, I was working on some storage stuff, but we're going to kind of make it look like our office. And I was like, okay, kind of.
Seems simple
enough. Seems simple enough.
Yep.
I see what's going on here. When you look at it and what the condition was and the plant, it was so crazy. And then going from 2 owners to down to 1 owner. I mean, there were so many moving parts in the air.
Contract changed 3 times, I think.
Yes.
It was a lot. Everything on that project that, could have been a relatively simple process, I feel like always had some extra hair on it. It was always an extra step or 3 or 9. And one of those extra steps was the HPC.
Yes.
What is HPC?
So in Wilmington, which, has a very long history.
Yep.
There are buildings out here that the community around wants to preserve. They are very passionate about their history, and rightfully so, right? You want to be able to show kids and generations hey, this was a town at one point that had very significant meaning and still does, and so you try to keep that history part of the township. So they have a coalition, the Historical Preservation Committee.
Yes.
That if you want to do anything with, any I'm not even sure of like when it starts, right? So like could be like 1600, 1800, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But, you know, they like to keep those buildings around, and I'm sure there's incentives for doing so. If you want to change an old building, they're going to have some questions. Like, you know,
Yes.
don't make it look too modern or like.
Well, not only questions, demands.
Oh, yeah. They got
Absolutely.
demands.
They have demands that you must adhere to.
Yes.
Certain appearance, certain materials, certain colors.
Yeah.
And then basically they make a whole packet of what you are allowed to do. And if you stray from that, they will not like that.
Really, the interesting thing about 717 is it's 2 separate buildings. It was 2 separate buildings.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, long time ago.
I was going to say, well, the building is in HPC, you know, territory.
Correct.
You would imagine it's the whole building. So when you stand on the street and you look at this building, it appears to be one building, but it's not.
Nope.
So you're looking at this building. It's a building, right? Cut it down the middle. Half of this building is in HPC, half of it is not. As crazy as that sounds, there was 2 buildings and then I think an alleyway between, and I think they merged them from what we can tell structurally. It appears that they took the alleyway out and then merged the buildings, but all the brick looks the same, so it's like very confusing. It looks like it's one building, but it's not, and that's the crazy part. It's like half of it is in HPC, the other half is not.
Yeah.
So for one half we can do whatever we want. The other half, we have very strict guidelines.
Correct. I mean, and that came with its whole different hurdles, you know, just changing a little bit because we had storefront that we wanted to put on there, and we wanted to change some of the storefront at some point, you know, from being 8 foot to 6 foot, and it just what you would think would be simple, right?
Yes.
Just like, I want to maybe change this 2 feet or change the color of this. You have to go back to the HBC and be like, you want to do this, and then they're going to be like,
let's meet about it.
Yeah,
have a
let's
meeting.
talk about this. Let me make sure I'm
not
picturing
sure.
what you're exactly saying. Can you see it from the right of way? That's a big one. Like if you change anything out back, they're like, can we see it from the right of way? What does that mean? Oh, if I'm driving by and I look, can I see it from that vision point?
Yeah.
And you're just hoping no.
The answer's
hoping,
usually
like,
yes.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, let me put a tree to block that for you.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the reasons why this building was not purchased in the past, because there was even more strict restrictions on this building based on an old committee that really didn't want to see this building change. So some of the board members left and some new board members came on board. Pun for you. And the change, it's really opinion based, right?
It really is.
They write codes and whatnot, but then with changes in the board, you have changes in opinion and changes what you can do. To be honest, this was one of the easier HPCs I've dealt with and horror stories that I've heard. This was pretty minimal, like, to be honest. I don't want to say we got lucky, but we were very fortunate to have the people in place when we did this project, because it made it possible.
So was it a off-market purchase? Is that what it was?
I believe so, yeah. I mean, again, we're on the construction team. We deal with Nomad a little bit, but I believe it was an off-market deal on Market Street.
Oh,
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, Market Street, right across the street from our office. And yeah, when it was purchased, I helped a little bit with, you know, the lot lines and the easement on the left side. That's why we couldn't extend the deck out back, because we have that easement where you need to be able to drive a car through, and that was the whole thing. Off-market deal on Market Street, and we are right at the end.
I can see the light.
Yes.
I mean, so let's just go into everything we've done in that, because it has gone a huge transformation, right? Mm-hmm. And it used to be like some government building, from my understanding.
Yeah, I think it was like a parole office.
Something like tax and revenue or something. Just like, so you know it was doom and gloom in there. But what did we do? I think we added...
Clear Stories.
Clear Stories. Here's again, another name.
Yeah, the architect really likes Clear Stories. I think there's 5 on the right, 1 on the left. 6.
And then stairs.
Stairs.
Oh my gosh. Stairs was a huge one. So we had to bump out the foundation. There's just so many things. So we gave it a new roof.
Yes, completely.
Not only did we do that, we added Clear Stories to it.
Yes. So we cut 6 ginormous holes in the roof deck.
Square holes, and one of them was a rectangle.
Yeah. And the other one was an octagon, because they wanted to do curved steel. And we were like, we're not doing
they're like, hey,
circular curved steel. No thanks. So we did an octagon. And honestly, I love the octagon.
I like the octagon a little bit better.
It looks awesome. We did that, and like you were saying, we had to bump out the foundation because we had to basically add a second story on there. We call it the light tower, where the stairs come up. You hit a big storefront opening,
Gosh, I think it's
and
beautiful.
then you turn and go up the stairs again, and then you're on the rooftop deck. That was not at all in the original plan.
No.
We were talking about building this office across the street, and when I got the plan set back, I was like, excuse me, who said this? And they're like, oh yeah, that's what the client wants. That's what the architect draws, and it's allowed. And I was like, this is allowed there? I'm like, are you sure? HPC said yes. And I was like, all right, I guess we're building this. I didn't know that's what was going on, but it's amazing. The building's phenomenal, right? But that's a good and bad thing about, a client and an architect working together outside of your control, right? Maybe I would have tried to hinder that, and that would have been like, creatively, I would have messed up the project because that's an awesome part. However, I did mention that it was going to be very expensive and add to the timeline significantly.
Yeah.
I remember our structural steel budget was $8,000, and that was, what we spent on that. It was $8,000 times 8 or 10 because we had to go up and we had to outrigger the steel out, and then we had to do steel verticals. And so that was a lot more than $8,000. I'll tell you that right now. Yeah, that's just part of it. It's letting the client and the architect dream up their wildest dreams, and then you get the plan set and you say, hold up, let's dive into this. And we figured it all out. We always do. Like, that's construction. You hit this major milestone, and always in the back of my mind, I don't know if you feel this way, it's like, I've been here 20 times before. I always know, how are we going to overcome this, right? And we always do, but in the moment, it feels so heavy.
Yes.
You know what I mean? How did we start from this and now we're here? And it's like, what went wrong? Because I know the budget is not going to support this, right? And there's ways you can raise the budget and do all these things, but they're hard conversations with the bank, the client, the architect, all these kinds of things. And it's just like, all right, if this is really what they want, we can make it happen. It's just now we got to strap in. It's time to change the momentum here.
I will say that's the ebb and flow of the project is like, that happens a lot, right? Like, you have these roller coasters of just up and down, but it kind of all comes together at the end where we're at right now. And you're like walking through, you're like, okay, all this was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, I would have made those changes because you can look at a detail and like, dang, remember when we overcame that? Okay, yep. And then you look at that one, you're like, dang, yeah, I remember that. That was a nightmare, but we changed that up. And even just looking at the storefronts, like, okay, I remember those were supposed to go all the way down. We went 6 foot here. We had to change that one over there.
We wanted the symmetry and all that kind of stuff. And that's something that like nobody would appreciate when just looking at the building. But we can. Like, very often when I look at those stairs, I remember doing an emergency pause on the stairs because the opening was a different size.
Oh my gosh.
You just look at those stairs now, they fit so perfectly. But we had to do an emergency pause on the fabrication.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
So it's like
I was like, FSI, hey, you didn't build those stairs yet, have you?
Justin,
please
pause.
And I'm like thinking, it was like, hey, just hold them for like a couple days. We're almost, we got this figured out. And then it was like, no, we need to sit down and look at this even more and more measurements and really, how do we want this to look? You know, we can bring the landing out. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, it was off by like 11 inches.
Once again, the demo, because the brick facade was really nice. We really wanted to keep sections of it, and if we had to cut this brick out even more, it was going to be really weird, and we'd have to tongue and groove these. It was crazy.
So the back part was right, but the front part was too tight. That was a whole thing. I'm sure you can, but like everywhere you look, if you stay there and you do a 10-degree rotation, you have a story about something. It's just never ending. That's what's really cool also for us because we're in the office a lot. We don't usually get to see these projects and really work with our hands on these like little details and things. And, to pass the inspection for plumbing, we had to make an adjustment to the kitchen countertops. I ran over to Home Depot, bought a bunch of material. I laid it on the ground. Cameron took it, assembled it. We passed inspection right away. And like, it's just funny now. We just look at it and it's just like, oh yeah, remember when we had to do that? And there's so many of those stories with all that kind of stuff. But since this project's so close to us, we can be hands-on like that. But a lot of our projects are 3.5 hours away. That's just not feasible for us to do.
Correct. Yeah, that really puts our position in perspective. So we had clear stories, did the stairs. HVAC was a huge lift.
Yeah.
We went back and forth on trying to find an HVAC vendor. Thought we made a great deal, great selection, saving money. But it turned out it went south a little bit. That was a huge hurdle because we had non-load bearing walls that were CMU that we had to go through.
Yes.
None of that stuff's on the plans. When you look at the plans, you're just like, oh, these truck lines and all these supply lines. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then you give it to your HVAC guy, and he's like, oh, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
And then they get to the site, and they're like, how am I going to get that through a brick wall? That's a good point.
Yeah.
Great point.
Magic.
I'm going to have to figure that out. So I'm going to have to get a vendor, go do all that whole thing, and then we got, okay, where's the lintel?
Yeah, not only that, the whole ordering off the plans. We hired a contractor from down south, and that went south. And Yeah, so when you're doing conversions like we do, certain contractors have experience doing that. Other contractors have experience doing new constructions. When you take a contractor that does mostly new construction and you put them in a conversion mindset, they don't foresee these hurdles. So they ordered all the ductwork off the plans. Well, the plans are pretty accurate, but there's certain walls that move and all that kind of stuff, or there's certain walls that aren't depicted. Maybe they're off by 5 foot. Or maybe they're off by 5 inches, but when you order the ductwork off the plans, if it's off by 5 inches, that's very off.
That ain't gonna work.
The duct can't go through a side of a wall.
Yeah.
So I think that was our biggest lesson learned, was picking the right contractors, not only like the right contractors, but for the project you're doing. If you're building office, you should hire an HVAC contractor that does office.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing new construction, contractor that does new construction conversion. Like, of course, some of these people can be hybrids, but you at least want to know if they have that experience doing that thing. And if they don't, there's probably a reason why their price is a little bit lower. Yeah, good thing we have great relationships with our HVAC contractor who we use on most of our job sites, because he came in there and cleaned it up real quick.
Yes, he did. That was a superhero moment. You have those superhero trades, and
yes,
I felt like we had a lot of superhero trades on this, just because that conversion, it gets so tricky, especially like you're just saying, existing conditions, right? When you have a project that you're working on and the customer who is very passionate about it.
Yes.
Who is very eager to get in the building.
Yes.
Right? Is looking at the building.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of cool things about that where you're going to have a great story. Just like we have great stories behind the building, the customer is going to have a great story behind the building. Mm-hmm. And they're like, you know what, let's try to keep that. It's like, I think that's a great idea. Yeah. Right? And now we have an existing condition that may not be on the plans.
Yep.
That we have to work through. It's like, okay.
Gotta work around.
Having a brick chimney right in the middle. I mean, that's a great story. It's absolutely cool, right? Yeah. So it's like, okay, how do we overcome this? There's so many things.
Yeah. What about electrical, man? I feel like no matter when or like what time of the day I showed up on the job site, no matter what phase of construction, there was at least 2 electricians in there.
So coming from the residential side, like electricians in there in a day, like they're roughing, boom, boom. But commercial, there's so many things going on, and you got to do home runs. You got to go all the way back. There's so many panels on that. I remember getting that prior power. You need to call 3 inspections on. I'm like, what? Why? Yeah. I was like, there's one building. They're like, well, you got 3 different panels here. I got to set 3 different meters. I'm like, I don't know why, but that's what the engineer called out. So I guess I'll do whatever you say. That was a headache, is what it is.
Yeah, and that goes back to having 2 clients. Yeah. It was supposed to be...
That's right. Yep. That's right.
Yeah, because you have a house panel, then you have the left side and the right side panel. But we probably could have got away with either 1 or 2 meters, especially probably 1, because if it's one owner, then you don't need a house.
Yep.
Because house gets billed separately. No, the house panel gets billed, and they split it 50-50 because that's exterior lights, like maintenance, that kind of stuff. The person on the right side gets their metered bill, and the person on the left side gets their metered bill. So all that into one, if you have 1 client, we probably could have got away with 1 meter.
And the whole thing is, like, you can't have those wires transfer over.
Yep.
Right? You can't have them go to one side, side A or side B.
Because it's going to be metered incorrectly.
I remember that, like, I'm sitting there right there watching the inspector do his thing, and he goes, that line's not transferred over, is it? And the electrician's like, no, it's not. You're good.
Yeah.
Because there's that middle section, right, where the stairs are.
Yes.
Where this is like, this is a gray area.
Yeah.
You know, is this side A or side B?
So, like, all the rooftop lights, like, that would go to the house panel, right?
Yeah.
And that would go. So that's where it gets tricky. And, you know, yes, like, once it was confirmed that it was going to be 1 client, 1 buyer, then we could have switched all that. But then we have to redo our engineering. We have to send back our panels. And our panels are crazy long lead time.
Yeah, you don't want to send anything back.
Those lead times could be like 12 to 20 weeks. Yeah. I mean, in Kernersville, we had a lead time of the interior switchgear was like, I think it was 30 weeks.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So even if you get that resolved, it's always this catch-22. It's like, should we fix this or should we just leave it? Because now we don't know if we can get the stuff in time. Yeah, so that takes care of the electrical, the roof. The roof was a journey as well.
That was a new TPO system.
Yep.
New insulation. If you've watched this podcast plenty of times, you know Ryan loves talking about a roof.
I do.
He loves it. So this was like, I'm telling you, he was over there a lot. Just give me the probe. Give me the probe. We want to mark this out. Cameron, what's that called? It's called a T-patch, Ryan.
Yes.
I learned that because you told me about it.
You learned a lot about roofing.
Roofs,
T-patches, turn bar. Do you remember when the tops of the clear stories were installed flat?
I do. I do remember that.
And then we had to pull up in the plans and be like, look, dude.
First of all, these aren't even adhered down.
No, it was just flapping in the wind. So we had to fix all that
I
stuff.
learned a lot of difference between mechanically fastened and there's a section of the roof where, this is really turning into like a 717 breakdown.
Yeah.
A section of the roof
Shooting from the
where
hip.
we're coming off the back deck, right? Where water's flowing in one direction. We're about to crash into the backside where it's like coming in. So yeah, like we got to figure out like, okay, how do we get this water to shoot?
We were up there for 3 hours measuring.
Multiple days. Yeah, we're like, okay. And then it's like trying to communicate to the roofer to make sure this works and make sure the flow happens, right?
Yeah, because we had to build up certain insulation, certain areas, and then pitch the roof so it kind of swooped around the curb because the curb was low and we didn't want to shake back and hit. Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Well, and because we weren't doing anything at the deck part, right?
Yeah.
We weren't adding that much insulation to that, so that changed the elevation.
Right. So we're adding like 5/8 plywood here, adding a little bit of insulation here, adding more insulation here, and we basically had to do all the math on how to get the water to actually flow off the roof. Yeah, that was crazy time.
Oh, my gosh.
And all of that, we were designing all of that while there was still a roof on it. So we couldn't see what we were doing. So we were having to tear it off and measure it. Yeah. And like, is that actually pitched?
Nothing's worse than when like you explain this all to your roof or whatever, and like I got it, right?
Yeah.
And then you walk away, right? Because then you're just hoping. Does he really got it?
Yeah.
Do they really have it?
It's complicated.
But you're gonna put down all that TPO, and if it ain't right, you have to fix it,
and
you can cause more damage.
Yes.
So many lessons learned on that. Okay, so roof, new TPO. Did we even really address plumbing? That was a huge nightmare.
We didn't talk about it much.
No, because previous, right, the old building had all the plumbing up front, right? So up front, right next to the sewer, so the fall. But
what do you mean by fall?
Explain that to me. The gravitational pull for your sewer, right? It's got to meet a certain, depending on the size of the line that you use, it has to meet a certain,
So this is for your sewer line, right?
Your sewer line connecting to your city sewer connection, right?
It's got to have a certain slope because it's a non-pressurized line, so the waste has to be basically gravity fed.
That's good that you said waste. I was going to say another word. The waste, like if it's too steep, right, you just have all the liquid waste, right, and then all your dry waste stays in place. Amazingly so, some plumbers got together and like the perfect pitch is like 1/8.
Yeah, 1/8 over a foot.
So they got it to where it flows, and so we're like, okay, but what happens when now you have to put plumbing
all the way in the rear,
all the way in the back?
Yep.
80 feet away.
Well, so I'll tell you, because we did it. We had to basically cut out massive trenches in the foundation, in the slab, hand dig a bunch of it out, and basically get this pitch perfect from the back as it transitioned all the way through the building.
So that's where an issue becomes, right? So now you have to do a lot of measuring, a lot of calculations. Okay, so this is my highest point where I can have, and then you got to figure out what's your lowest. Okay, now where's my sewer connection? Am I going to meet that fall? Right? Because you don't want to have to move a sewer line. You definitely don't want to do anything to the city sewer, right? Like you don't have to do any of that.
Remember the highest connection too? And then it was like, well, it's from the bottom of the upside of the P-trap.
And you're talking about like that concrete. It was like a 6-inch slab.
I know. It was hard to cut out. And then we hit the footer.
And once again, this was two buildings.
Goodness.
There was internal footers that were part of one building, right? And then another, it's just like, oh my gosh.
Talk about like every time we got it. And then you just literally hit something.
That was an early stage plumbing roughing. Okay, boom, done. We're getting close. Like a month out to being finished. Guess what? Run into another hurdle. Now we're trying to connect to the sewer. Guess what? There's another freaking footer outside.
How is there a footer in the front lawn?
Gosh.
Who put a footer here?
Yes. Why is there a footer under the sidewalk?
Yeah.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I just remember like, that's concrete. What do you mean? Hold on, plumber. You're saying that there's just concrete in the middle of the sidewalk?
There's no way there's a 4-foot chunk of concrete under the sidewalk.
All right, Cameron, come check it out. I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? Let's brainstorm that. Okay, so then we talked about plumbing.
Yep.
We've got electrical. Big one was the floors, right? That was a huge process of this beautiful terrazzo. I didn't know anything about terrazzo.
Now you know unlimited.
Now I know about terrazzo, and it is beautiful. It's going to be a beautiful floor. Yeah. So terrazzo is just almost like an exposed aggregate type of looking floor, right? Yeah. That was on one side of the building. The other side did not have it. So we had to cut out all these old plumbing. We had to patch. We had to do all this stuff with the terrazzo. We had to scrape it because it had glue on it. So, right, you can't grind it because it's going to gum up the glue. So we had to scrape it, and then we had to grind it, clean it. Oh, that was a whole process. And this huge. 13,000 square foot building.
And we also had remember when we had to sandblast all the walls to get all the paint off?
Yeah, that was a whole process.
Yeah, because the client wanted the brick to be exposed.
And it's beautiful.
It's awesome, especially it's still got a little bit of white tint in certain areas. Oh, man, it looks like awesome. But, yeah, we had to find the right media for the sandblaster, and then the sandblaster had a hole in it, and we had to return it.
We looked at everything. Paint stripper, it was so much. We're just like, you sure just these walls, right? Thank goodness.
Yeah.
We don't want to do any more. It was a lot of sandblasting. And then a lot of masonry work.
Yes.
Once again, with these old government buildings, they're not the prettiest sometimes on the outside. So we want to bring a lot of storefront, a lot of natural light into these areas. And sometimes you got to cut new lentils open. You got to extend some lentils. You got to cut in the back. There was so much masonry work that went on. And we found a rock star mason that came out, and they went to town.
Yeah, they were great. All right, I feel like we're missing one major trade. That building didn't have fire sprinklers, so that's that's good. Framing and drywall, how'd that all go?
Yeah. So that was another big thing, right? That was another huge hurdle. All these walls had to be framed up, right? And actually, that was one of
inspection.
That was one of the. That's an exciting moment, right?
Yeah.
After you demo everything out, we're working on sandblasting, we're working on sanding the floors and getting those prepped. And that was a big discussion, like, okay, do we want to seal them now, or how do we want to play this?
I'm so glad we didn't seal them.
Because we want to get walls up. We want to start hanging up walls, because drywall, and then your rough-in trades can come in. Your electrician can come in, your HVAC guy can come in. So we were looking at that, but we got a quote. We had a pretty big outfit come out and look at what our plans were and what we wanted to do, and holy smokes.
They smoked our budget by 3 times.
Yes, they went to the moon with that thing. And we're like,
so we couldn't use them. No. I'm sure it would have came out pretty good, but it's really non-structural. It's not rocket science.
Yeah, that's a quick pivot right there.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's figure this out. So we got that done. We got drywall up, and so much drywall. It's been crazy.
And even though it's not load-bearing framing, we still had to pass framing inspections, and then we had to do the pass-through inspections, and we needed our HVAC rough-in, and that's when we did the whole switch of the HVAC contractor so that we could get the rough-in inspections, the pass-through inspections, so we could get our framing inspection. Oh, my goodness. You remember that? That was a crunch point that really felt like it wasn't going to come to an end.
It was really nice, though, too, because we did not do drop ceiling except for a little spot. So all those above ceiling inspections, they were kind of easy to get through. I learned a lot.
Yes.
I will tell you, that project will have a special place in my heart.
Yeah, for sure.
And I will remember it. I wake up sometimes with nightmares.
Yeah.
There's a footer somewhere.
There's me driving. Footer.
Someone says, hey, we're going to convert this building off market. Like, no.
Yeah, I mean, I'll remember this for the rest of my life, for sure.
A lot of lessons learned.
That's where BPOs, PPNDs, and SCAIs came about.
That's where they were born.
Yeah, we had a lot of hard moments there in that building. Hard conversations.
NFA meetings.
NFA.
Oh,
we won't say what that stands for.
No.
A lot of head scratchers.
That one put us to the test.
That one really did put us to the test.
I love how it turned out. It was great. Really got opportunity to bring the client in on a lot. So that was really cool to see how our client interaction went and bringing them in to see, the transformation they had. Gosh, it's really cool. And they're going to end up liking that building.
Yeah, it was for a great client, and it's a great project. I don't know about you, but I'm happy our name is on it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think we probably won't do anything like that right away, but if and when we do, we are going to be so much more prepared.
Absolutely.
Maybe stick to our roots and do a little bit more self-storage. But hey, you never know.
Honestly, I want to do another one.
Right away?
I do.
Well, I know, because from talking with you, you don't want to lose the knowledge that you just gained. You want to reapply right away. But
want to challenge ourselves again. I'm like, okay, dang.
That's true.
Make sure these lessons carry over.
That is true.
Well, don't get better.
We can only do what we can do, and so whatever projects come our way, that's what we'll do. I mean, we're not scared of anything.
Dang right.
Dang right.
Dang right.
How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's what John Servo always says.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's a deep dive into 717, one of my favorite projects that we've done so far. It was an office conversion into shared office space with one of the great clients, Christopher Capone.
If you walk into that building, it's a statement. We did knock it out of the park, and it's an amazing space. If you're here in Wilmington, go check it out. I think it's 717mkt.com. Well, thanks for watching. That was Season 2, Episode 12. Deep dive into 717 Market Street.
Yes.
Off-market deal on Market Street. Woo! Amazing project. Thanks for watching.